you have not seen these field notes yet, they are absolutely amazing. And that is what we're here to talk about today, is this great packs full of beautiful letterpress printed field notes made by a lot of our friends. And we're so excited to get some behind the scenes. So I want to say, field notes, if you don't know field notes, right, they're known around the globe for making wonderful, hardworking notebooks. They're printed right here in the US of A, even when they're not letterpress printed. These are definitely printed at the United States of Letterpress here in the US by independent letterpress shops around the country. And it's a perfect time to have people come together because that's what we need right now. So I want to say thank you so much, Bryan. Thank you so much, Matthew, for joining us today. And thanks for sharing how this happened.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, thank you, Steph.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to go first and tell you a little bit about the history of field notes really briefly, and then show you some of our older projects. And then Matt's going to go into more detail about the current US of Letterpress project. So let me share here. And as Stephanie said, we're Field Notes. We're in Chicago on the west side, West Loop, Fulton Market, I guess. We started out as an advertising agency called Kudal Partners. This is our website. And kind of in the late 90s, early 2000s, had a blog going kind of before that was really a thing and had a lot of followers. And so I'm going to kind of talk you through how that turning from an advertising agency into being a notebook company. We hired a copywriter named Steve who made films, and that became useful. He was a copywriter originally, but ended up kind of doing more filmmaking for us than that. They made a short film called Copy Goes Here that was kind of a gag that he started working with us and none of us could read or write, and that's why we hired him. And we had this blog going. We had kind of like all these followers, and some of them wanted to buy the film, so we put it out on a DVD, and then started working on another film and kind of sold that as a Kickstarter idea to finance the next film that actually never happened. The case we used to make the film was we got an AOL CD in a case like that, and we liked it and couldn't find them anywhere to make ourselves or print, so we ordered a pallet of them from the Netherlands and started selling that as a kit. With laser or inkjet printable paper called jewel boxing with perforated paper. And we're getting into more and more of these weird side projects that were leading us away from advertising. This CD packaging system led to us working with the Pixies and Dead Can Dance to release their live concert films that you could buy at the show. And we would manufacture the CDs and mix them down and ship them out later to people that ordered them. Which was just a dream come true working with the Pixies. That was one of my favorite bands. And then all these other just weird projects. We had a lot of friends who were writers and bloggers, and we asked them to write about their favorite summer reading book, and we would do that as a feature on the site every year, and then that turned into an actual book, and we'd have these posters that was J. Ryan on top, and then Aesthetic Apparatus in the middle, and Spike Press on the bottom. Would make these posters. So by this time we were kind of selling a lot of stuff on the site and kind of getting more and more into these weird side hustles. We did a thing called Layer Tennis, where on every Friday, 2 designers would come and send a file back and forth and modify it. They'd have 15 minutes to modify the file, and then a blogger or a design critic maybe would write a commentary along with it, and people would tune in and watch it live. And we did several seasons of that. That ended up being sponsored by Adobe and consuming most of our Fridays. This was a guy named Aaron Draplin who did this volley in a Layer Tennis match, and we'll be back to him in a minute. But along with all that, we were getting, with the blog and with all these products we were selling, people were sending us more and more things, t-shirts, books, zines, records, crafts, posters, just things they wanted us to blog about and post about and share so that people would see it on our site. Like this is Kate Bingaman Burt or Marion Banshee sent us this poster. And we were getting these things and sending them back out. The joke was, if you sent us something, we would send it back out to someone else that sent us something else. And we were shuffling all this stuff around and realized that wasn't a very profitable business model because we were just paying shipping on a lot of stuff. So we ended up selling some of these products. And again, so we actually had a whole page of stuff for sale via the swap meet, which turned into, we had ended up with a basically shopping cart retail online business where we were selling all this kind of disparate random stuff. And that's where Aaron comes back in. Aaron, this weirdo, sent us, he collected these old notebooks. So these are mostly 20th century agricultural or industrial manufacturers that would use these as a promotional book. So it would be barbed wire or seeds or animal feed, fertilizer, conveyor belts, and they would give these to their distributors to hand out to farmers or mechanics or whoever would use the product, just to keep the product in mind. And Aaron had the same idea. He's like, oh, I'll make some of my own for my company, the Draplin Design Company. So he made these field notes and sent them out to a bunch of friends, including us. And we thought, oh, those are neat. Why don't you make we made a batch of, I think, 1,000 packs to sell in the swap meet, and they sold out almost immediately. And we started a company called Field Notes that was a joint venture between Aaron's DDC and Kudal Partners. And that gradually took over more and more of our business. This was 2007, I guess, when we started it. And within a few years, that was pretty much everything we were doing. We were making, this is the original version of Field Notes with graph paper on the inside. That was just the one original single product we had at first. We quickly expanded that into having different body papers, rolled and graph and plain, in a mixed pack. And as we were printing those, we thought, hey, let's print a couple with colored covers as limited editions. And we put those up for sale. The orange ones there were first. And those sold out within a couple days. We kind of already had this built-in following of Kudal and Draplin fans reading our blog. So it took off pretty quickly. We were surprised. Sales were really good right from the beginning. A lot of high-profile bloggers were using them and posting about them. So we didn't even have to advertise, really. We just kind of got really good word of mouth. So when the orange one sold out really quickly, we said, oh, we'll do this every quarter, and kind of quickly had the idea. Someone suggested, why don't you do a subscription so I can make sure I don't miss any of them. So this is a subscription box that Dan Black from Landland made for us. I think that was last year's or 2 years ago. But we have thousands of people that buy a yearly subscription to make sure they get 2 packs of each new edition, so they're not missing out on any of those. So at that point, we were, we had the original graph paper field notes with black print on them, and we wanted to find new ways to make those interesting. We had a template for the design, and we couldn't change the design or the layout really. So obviously the thing to change was the colors or the paper or the printing technique. So we started doing more foil stamping, die cutting, some early letterpress printing. This is Dan Barron in Freeport, Illinois. He printed a few editions for us early on out of his parents' print shop out in the country, basically in a small town up near Rockford. And that's his Miele vertical press. He printed Raven's Wing and Grasstein Green for us. These were 2 of our early limited editions. And again, just trying to find interesting papers using colored papers, different printing techniques. To attract subscribers, we started including more in subscriber packages. This was National Crop, which was a 6-pack that came in a clamshell box, and it came with a patch you could sew on your jacket or your backpack. And there was also a poster in there showing the 6 top crops in the US, the distribution of the crops. This is America the Beautiful, which was another limited edition that was sort of designed to look, again, to look like Aaron's collection, these old kind of wonky 4-color printed books. A lot of them had a white border in one area where maybe the local distributor could take them to a small printer and have his logo and phone number imprinted there, or they would even just rubber stamp on there. So we kind of copied that style on the bottom of the America the Beautiful books. Again, with subscriber bonuses, we wanted to send people extra stuff. So this was a water transfer decal made by Art Decal in California that actually made a lot of the old, the old tourist decals that you would see on old suitcases and cars, and they made them for Disney and everything. So this is a close-up of that book. We actually we're dealing with bigger and bigger runs as we're doing this, and now we're on a big, I think this, big Heidelberger Komori 6-color offset press, and we're saying, hey, can you do a 120 line screen, and can you knock it off register? And the printers are looking at us like, what is wrong with you? Or details like that copper staple there. But it was so neat to actually work with the printers. Our printers actually get really involved in it and get excited to work with us because we're always asking for crazy things. And when this was the first time they'd ever heard anyone asking how far out of register they could knock something. Holographic foil on these. This was Night Sky. This is one of my favorite editions with a map of the summer sky across the back of 3 books with all the major constellations. This was Drink Local, which for subscribers got that extra cardboard 3-pack or 6-pack carrier. There were 2 3-packs for ales and lagers. And these were actually coasters that were letterpressed by Tandem Felix here in Chicago, or in Pilsen in Chicago. Who were actually using, Dan had got out of the business by then and sold Liz and Jamil his equipment. And so, we were starting to see how the letterpress community actually all knew each other and kind of worked together and shared and sold and traded equipment. Yeah, and that was, if anyone wants to know how not to print coasters, I can go into details on that in questions and answers. Always looking for new materials, new papers. This was a company in Wisconsin that they actually shaved they would take a cherry trunk and shave it very, very thin and laminate it to different papers so you could actually use it as a paper product. We called this shelter wood, and then that turned into another regular product called cherry, what was it? Cherry wood, no. Cherry graph, we called it.
Cherry graph. Sorry.
Some of the limited editions would end up, if they were real popular, we'd do sort of a slightly different version and make that a regular version. So this was also a good way for us to learn how to deal with these new print techniques and these new materials and kind of test them out before we went full scale production with them. This was Ambition, which was like a date book, a memo book, and a ledger. We were starting to use more and more embossing and foil stamping, and we realized that the embossing and foil stamping machinery was letterpress printing, and usually a bigger scale and a little more industrial and not as hands-on as what Dan was doing. But we ended up kind of using debossing and even offset printing a color into it and then debossing it later to kind of imitate that letterpress impression on some projects. Then this same edition had Gilded Edges, which was Liberty Book and Bible in Indianapolis did that for us, like finding these vendors all over the country, because of course we're making everything in the US and we need to stick with that. We were always looking for new papers, and one day in the mail I got a package from Bryan French with this in it, and this was the original test swatches of their new craft tone paper. So he sent this to us and we got started with it before the swatch book even came out to do our workshop companion set. So this was kind of the first big project to use those papers. It came out, I think, the same week as their swatch book came out, which was exciting just to be the first person to use a new paper. Like probably most of you are pretty familiar with French and know that, a new line of paper from French was a big deal in the industry. So it was exciting that they told us about it first. The die cutting and again embossing, and this was the first one we did that had a fly leaf inside of it. So the moon is black and white, but if you saw the inside, inside was printed in color with the night sky behind that and some details. So that was our first fly leaf, and then there were 3 different die cuts in the cover with the same fly leaf inside. So you'd have a full moon or a half moon or a crescent moon. And then just, again, getting obsessed with printing and history and getting into these rabbit holes, learning about things and getting excited about it. This was the dime novels from the Beadle brothers that were published in the 1860s, and they were using new equipment, like learning how these new faster presses were making it possible to print these cheap paperbacks. And Jim kind of just found a link about it somewhere, started reading about it. We got really deep into it, found people at the University of Northern Illinois have a huge collection of them. So we got to go out there and talk to them and make a film there and learn more about them. And then we based our edition on that, which was just something, it's kind of exciting to educate people about the history of printing and design and ephemera, as well as just making useful things. This was one called Coastal, which was the white was digitally printed, and then there were 2 holographic foils. So that was going on different presses and just really making things complicated for our printer. Some of them are just crazy die cuts, or every time we do one, we're trying to learn ourselves as we're printing and designing it, on top of just trying to come up with something pretty looking. It's great to educate us. This was a box set we did with the band Wilco, where each artist worked with where each member of the band worked with a different artist to come up with a book for them. So this was the bassist John Sturrat's book that Brett Stenson designed, and there was one for each member of the band. And then, sometimes we just do regular 4-color printing, but still keep it complicated. These had a fly sheet inside of them that was the 3 missions edition, which celebrated Apollo, Gemini, and the Mercury space programs. But to keep it super complicated, we included a paper craft model of the 3 different space capsules that you could punch out and build with the books. And then I don't even have the packaging, was real complicated for that. Matt designed it. It was a kind of a backing card with flaps that held everything in place. So
yeah, that was kind of a last minute necessity because the cards for those papercraft models were about twice the size of the books. And so it was just, as many design problems are, trying to solve something that we backed ourselves into a corner with,
Right. And it's we have good ideas, but we usually have them later than we should. And then going back a few editions, we met these guys. And actually, Matt, if you want to jump in and talk about how we got involved with Hamilton real quick.
Well, I don't know the exact genesis of the Two Rivers project, but I had gone to Hamilton in, maybe it was even as early as 2010. I know it was before Stephanie was there. My wife was the president, not my wife at the time, but my wife now was president of the AIGA group that Dan Elliott, who many of you know, was the student advisor for at Harrington College of Design in Chicago. And so I had gone to Hamilton a bunch of times. I think the second time I went there, Stephanie was already there. And having been the only person in the last, 20 years that had letterpress experience, they brought me with. And we had no idea what we were doing, but Jim and Stephanie were very kind to us.
Yeah, I think it was you that suggested working with them originally, and then we went up and talked to them, and I was just blown away by the museum, and it was right up my alley. I was familiar from working with Dan and from, we did a teeny bit of letterpress printing when I was in college in the 90s, and just, I was always a little interested in it, but it was a little outside what I'd really worked with, and going up there and seeing just all that history. Like my great-grandfather was a linotype typesetter, and my older sister did like photo typesetting in the 70s. So just seeing all the history in one place, and of course meeting Jim and Stephanie, of course, was the icing on top. They're the 2 greatest people in the world, and working with them was wonderful. So the problem was, we knew we wanted to do something with them, and we knew normally by this time we were printing 35,000, or maybe even, I think we did around that time, maybe 35,000 3-packs of books. So that's almost 100,000 books.
I think it was 25. I think
I think we did a little smaller for this run, but our normal run around them was a lot. So we knew it was going to be, especially by field note standards of planning ahead, we would need to plan ahead a lot more than we usually did, because it was going to take a real long time to coordinate and typeset and print all these. And
if people have questions about details, Jim and Stephanie have extensive notes.
And
I know that because I asked them for some info recently.
They have plenty to talk about too about this, right? And then French Paper stepped in and donated the paper for the covers, which was wonderful. So we had Matt and Aaron Draplin and I went up there and just typeset, I think 7 or 8 different forms of just random. We just went through the collection and picked out things we thought were neat and made posters or corners of posters, or just things that sort of would work as a background texture for what we were going to do. And proofed those and got those all typeset, and I think Stephanie printed all those in black for us, so we could bring them back and mess with them in layers on the computer. But we kept all the forms made, and we went on and mixed I think 7 forms with 4 colors of paper and 3 different inks to come up with. I think we ended up with a couple thousand different variations. I think there were maybe 10 or 12 kind of each book, and then you change the paper and do 10 or 12, and then change the paper, then do 10 or 12, then change the ink and do 10 or 12. So it was a very, very complicated process that kept Jim busy, I think, pretty much from July till November or something like that. I can't remember what the months were, but it was months and months of work for Jim, and Stephanie was there collating paper and making notes about which ones had been printed and which ones still needed to be printed. And it just, of all the projects we've done, this was just, we have these ideas, and I kind of have in my head what I want to do, and this one came out exactly what I dreamed of. When I look at these, it's everything I'd hoped it would be, and on top of that, it benefited the museum, which made me really happy. So this was one of my favorite projects, and we actually got to go up there and be hands-on and set the type ourselves and all that. So ever since we had done this, we really wanted to, here's another picture of one of the versions up on Hamilton on one of the type cases. Ever since we did this, we wanted to do something else with Hamilton. We wanted to work with Hatch, and we still keep talking about doing that. And we also started coming to Ways Goose, and God, like Ways Goose is just something I look forward to so much every year. And we meet the best people there, the coolest people, and we've wanted to work with all these people, and we talk to them every year at Ways Goose, and we say, we would love to have you do something with us, but we do these huge runs now, and it would kill you. Bob Atkins can talk about this a little more later, but we couldn't think of a way to involve smaller letterpress shops and do a huge project like this, and that led up to the beginning of this year. So I'll let Matt take over now.
Yeah, bear with us while we switch screens.
Well, in the time of you switching screens, I'm going to say thank you, guys. That was lovely. We loved working with you so much. I'm blushing, which is good because I won't show up on the screen when you do share screen.
It was the perfect job.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, Bryan, to have somebody say, no, if it's a little off register, that's okay. It's like, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I have some details about that later. So yeah, we had been, Bryan and I and pretty much everybody else at Field Notes have been talking about, how could we work with letterpress people again? What could we do? And we were all pretty stumped because it was like, just as Bryan said, really big runs and really hard to do. And then sometime near the end of last year, back in the halcyon days of just the world, Michelle at Field Notes said, hey, what if we call it United States of Letterpress and we just work with a bunch of different printers? And we thought like, oh yeah, that's really cool. So we'll start thinking about that. And then we were planning on doing that for the summer edition for this year, back in, November, December when we started talking about it. And we got through the winter, and in January, February, I started, now the timeline might be a little screwy here, but January, February, we're located in Chicago. I reached out to Stephanie at Hamilton and said, what kind of trouble are we getting ourselves into here? And she kind of talked me through that and gave us a real long list of people who she thought, could do it. And she had it categorized by like, definitely can do it with the equipment they have, definitely could maybe do it. And then other people who we know and love, but probably don't have the equipment. And so it was kind of categorized by that. Meanwhile, we started talking to one of our offset presses who produces a lot of the quarterly editions that we do, called Lake County Press. They're up in Waukegan, Illinois. And we talked to them and kind of figured out the layout, how many sheets we could fit on full-size press sheets. So what we did was we pre-printed all the Field Notes elements inside and outside of the cover on the full-size press sheet, and then trimmed it down to 8.5 by 13. So we actually got 10 of these 2-up sheets out of each full press sheet. Once we kind of had that nailed down in terms of how it would fit, we reached out to French Paper and Finch Paper and said, hey, this is a project we're embarking on. Would you like to partner with us? And lucky for us and our pocketbooks, they said yes. And they were really great. They provided all the paper for this. And then after that, my first call was to Jen at Starshape Press, just to kind of get an idea of how much trouble we were really getting into. And Jen has been hounding Bryan and I for a while at every Ways Goose and everything else we run into her at, saying, I really want to do something with you guys. And we said, here's your chance. Sign the slip. Let's get it going. And then after talking to Jen, knowing that Jen was a small, very independent printer, I called up Genghis Kern and Mama Sauce, knowing that Jason from Genghis Kern and Nick from Mama Sauce both know Aaron Draplin a little bit. And so it was an easy phone call to make, knowing that they're both familiar with it. And and also that they're job printers. And so they were both like, oh yeah, we could get ours done in a week or less. And Jen definitely needed, 4 to 6 weeks to print hers. And then after that, we had these 3 signed up. We reached out to Springtide Press in Tacoma, Washington, Full Circle Press in Nevada City, Rick Griffith in Denver, Brad Vetter in Louisville, Aaron Beckloff in Ohio, and Ben Blunt in Evanston, Illinois. And so what we ended up with were 9 printers for 3 3-packs. So each 3-pack has 3 printers in it. And pack A is always going to have the same printers, but it might have some different people in it. In doing this, talking through it, a lot of these people couldn't do this on their own. So Aaron enlisted Ksenia Thomas of Thomas Printers in Ogden, Utah, to do the job printing for hers. And then Rick, Jessica at Springtide Press, Ben, and Brad all called up Jason. And I think Jason's on this call. We'll talk to him later, but he's got wild hair that got a little grayer through this project. And then we also did a fly sheet. So we wanted to include information about the printers. So we did a fly sheet that had a little bio about the printer and a small paragraph about the project itself. And we enlisted Skylab Letterpress for that. In terms of the design, we did a lot less design than we usually do. But for the fly sheet, Bryan was printing through his general printing book. And I think Hamilton might actually sell these, or at least they used to. And found this gorgeous border, which is from the Bay Psalms book, which was the first book printed in the American colonies. And so Bryan just lifted that because, why not? It's perfect for this. And so this is a mock-up of one of our fly sheets, and then the finished product printed by Skylab. And one of the only other design things that we had to figure out was how are we going to differentiate these packs. And so we did that on the back of the belly band, just by saying, this is pack B and it has these people in it. This is where they're from. And that was kind of the cleanest way to do it that we could figure out. I'm sure there are other ways, but keep it to yourself. And so that was kind of what we did. And then, we shipped, I'll go back a little bit. We shipped paper. So Lake County Press printed these 9 different colored cover stocks for us and then shipped it out across the country. And for people that were using job printers, we just shipped them like 100 sheets for proofing that they could then send to the job printer so they had a reference to match it with. But we ended up with these beautiful packs. Every printer got 1 color to work with. So everything that Jen printed was on blue paper. Everything that Ben printed was on a green paper. I have them in front of me, but I'm not going to look at my notes to say which one's which. They're all from the French paper Pop Tone line. And then everybody also used 2 inks. So they were, was it Rubine Red and Process Blue? And to our surprise, we didn't even know this, but every single book ends up with kind of a 3D effect. If you put 3D glasses on and look at it, you can definitely make yourself a little dizzy with that. So we sent out this paper to everybody, but then we also sent them pretty late in the game a few curveballs. So we told them, you can print 2 variants for us if you want to. And all but 2 did. Full Circle Press and Starshape Press did not. And I understand why. I mean, Jen had already done so much work, and Ethan and Judith had done a ton of work too on theirs at Full Circle. And so that was totally understandable. These covers here are from Rick Griffith. So this is just an example, in your pack C, you're going to get 1 of these. And you'll also get a book from Starshape Press and a book from Aaron Beckloff. Another thing that we like to do with our editions is we make a film for each one. And so our original plan before the pandemic hit was, oh, we're going to fly around the country and we're going to spend a week in this mania flying around and filming everybody and interviewing them. And that just wasn't possible. So we asked them to film themselves. This is the title from the finished film. It's about a 12.5-minute promo / documentary, and it's really beautiful. And I'm so happy that we got to do it. And this is just a short preview of it. So we had everybody shoot themselves and then pose for these kind of moving image portraits. And it says 9 voices, but we featured every printer in here because we just appreciated it so dang much. It was really something to get through this, and I have a bunch of other slides that I'll run through real quick, but just the logistics involved in sending this stuff around was sometimes harrowing, we'll say, especially during a pandemic where we're not sure whether or not this is actually gonna come together. Just often no idea. And really everything went so much smoother than I thought it could have. I think, so this is pack A. This has a book from Genghis Kern, Full Circle Press, and Mama Sauce. Pack B features Brad Vedder, Springtide Press, and Ben Blunt. And then pack C features Aaron Beckloff, Rick Griffith, and Starshape Press. And we pretty much let everybody run wild, This one from Springtide, Field Votes, is just, it's so much fun to play with that and to give people the free rein to kind of do what they want with it. We were talking about registration a little bit earlier. Jen actually emailed me, and I think also talked to Jason, because she knew Jason was printing a lot of this stuff for people, and said, hey, so these really precise sheets from this huge 10 color offset press are all a little off register. And it was, she dealt with it with aplomb and made her adjustments, but when you're working with stuff that's this small and this precise, it's like, man, I can't believe this new technology isn't as good as her hand-fed platen press. It's just astounding. This is a close-up of Ben Blunt's book. Brad Vedder's Better Together, which is really great. I mean, I'm so happy with the variety and the quality of printing and the voices that people were using here. It was just really something special. And, just so dang thankful that we got to do it.
Yeah, it's really stunning to see it all and have you guys share it in that way. It's outstanding how much stuff came together to make these packs.
It really was a lot. I mean, it was constant phone calls and, okay, what sheet sizes are best and what sheet sizes can we get from, and talking to the offset printer and talking to the letterpress printers and just signing people up and, I got the wrong color sample pages, and just like endless hurdles and hiccups. And yeah.
Matt kind of said there were, just to point out, there were so many steps and so many moving parts and so much logistics to it and so many things that could have gone wrong in the best of times. And then on top of that, with the pandemic, it was just made it like so much more scary that something could go terribly wrong. And then really everything went pretty smoothly, largely because Matt had it very organized and because all the printers were just so great to work with and so organized. And
yeah, I mean, the printers really made it very, very easy. And thankfully for us, every printer we asked said yes. And we didn't, some of these people are people we know, and some of them are new friends to us, but we aimed for, geographic diversity first and foremost, but then also gender and racial diversity as well is important, especially in a, I don't want to say hobby, in an industry or you know, this small section of the design world that is so classically dominated by white men. It was really important to us to have a variety of voices involved in that.
And style diversity too. Like,
yeah,
they're all so different, which is great. They all work together, I think, as a set very well, but they all very well display the character of the person that made them, and I think that's great.
Well, and we have a lot of the printers on the call. Can you guys wave? Let's see. I'll have to go through both two screens. Oh, we've got you guys on this screen. We're gonna go to the next screen.
yeah, we have many
that's
here.
really important as well.
I'm sure a lot of them have complaints, and I would love to hear them. I know for some people it was easier than others. I mean, just the fact that Jen printed all those on her own in her little studio is incredible. And then, Bob, how many sheets did you have to print for the fly sheets? I mean, I could do the math, but it was, or how many hours did you spend on press, let's say?
I spent all of July, much to my wife's chagrin, here at the shop. And I was something over 200,000 of the first 2-color pass. And then I was having feeding issues, and I didn't want to jack up the black run. So then I just cut them in half and ran them kind of 2 up at a go. And I kind of lost track of time, but literally it was like all of July. So that was kind of cool that the pandemic hit, because it was kind of slow in the shop. And most of these printers know once you get in the groove, it's just fun to print, and you put some tunes on or a book and just listen to some stuff. But yeah, it was a lot of, I kind of lost, let's say over 200,000. So
yeah. It was, yeah, that was something we talked about too, was in February, whether or not we even wanted to embark on this, not knowing how business was going to be for us, not knowing if shops would be open. There were some shops that closed for it, like Ksenia ended up running late because the building that her shop is in had to close for a few days to clean pretty late in the game. And that was fine, you know, it ended up being all right. I think the scariest part for us was when we got into converting the sheets into finished books and just making sure that the fly sheets matched the covers, matched the pack that they were supposed to be in the stack order. And it was just a lot of nights where we weren't sleeping very well, getting pretty worried about this stuff.
Even then, there were a couple of COVID scares at LCP too, so like that could have just shut down and ruined us. Like there was a lot of things that could have been thrown our way. Yeah,
for sure. Who else do we have here? I mean, who else wants to talk about this? I know Brad's here. What was this project like for you?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I think one of the hardest things for me was the fact that I didn't get to print it. I'm so used to designing and printing everything that I do and handing it off to Jason. I had no worries at all, but I wish I could have been there to actually work on the project. You know, that's part of printing, I think, is getting to do the final thing, especially when it's letterpress, like handing it off for offset, no big deal. But this one, it kind of hurt that I didn't get a hand crank everyone through, but I think with the quantity, it would have been my July and August. Yeah.
I think it's fair to mention that I think when Jason was actually physically printing, we were like in the car to go get a COVID test.
Yeah.
So there was like a whole like yelling match of like, please drive the car. I know you're pooping on your phone.
And I'm pretty sure Brad wasn't happy with the color either. He was like, oh,
we're moving to a new shop too, right?
It looks a little
yeah, yeah, and in the middle of moving to a new location, yeah.
We kind of tried to master the art of the digital press check in this COVID area, and like, oh, there you go. Jeff, like, I got pictures I'll share on Instagram later today, but like, we had Jeff on press and me with the laptop pointing at the press, and Brad, Jessica, Ben, or like on their face on Zoom. It was pretty fun. Like, we had a good time with it.
He is driving right now. This is ridiculous.
Then you should talk.
Yeah,
Tell us about your experience, Rick.
Adventure.
This feels very
Yeah,
on brand, being
Yeah,
on a call, on a car. Yes.
Learn from Jim Sherrod.
Jason just mentioned
Yeah.
Instagram, and it was funny that a few printers posted photos, like field notes, like the limited editions are very secretive, and we have these insane, like, dedicated fans who are calling printers and lying and stuff and going through dumpsters trying to find out what our next edition is going to be. And I think 3 or 4, maybe even more than that, of the printers posted photos of Instagram on the work while they were working on it, but in a way that no one, I know Jen did and Bob did, and just little corners of things that would never be identified as what it is. So I think it'd be funny to go back and look at everyone's Instagram feed, because almost everyone was working on it so long they posted about it.
One of my favorite calls that I got, I mean, I talked to most of the printers at least every 2 weeks during this process, but pretty early after sending out the sheets for everybody, Jessica Spring called me, and she's on here too, and she very tenderly said, do you mind if I screw with your logo a little bit? And I wonder, I mean, Jessica, do you want to talk a little bit about that cover? And
Yeah, I was amazed that you guys were okay with that. I felt like I should ask permission, because as a graphic designer, the logo is always sacred. And as soon as I figured out that wordplay, I was like, I got to do this. I got to do it so bad. And then Jason and Jeff were so patient trying to register my 2 colors plus the N in the field notes. And I know stuff wiggled around, but I love how they handled it. It's beautiful.
yeah, that one, especially right now this month, that one and Rick's vote cover feel so poignant and important to have as part of that pack. But also, it's kind of evergreen. Like, it's always important to vote. So go out and vote, kids.
Logo standards are important until you have a really good idea.
Yeah. Who else do we have here? Is Jen here with us?
Jen and Aaron and Ben are on the call as well.
Rock and roll. Jen, what possessed you to print this yourself?
Jen, you're on the air.
Because I can. Because I used to do this size run all the time, and it's not that big of a deal. And Matt, I did it in about 2 weeks, not 4 to 6.
Yeah, I think maybe I had 4 to 6 in my head because I told my boss that we needed that much time just to make sure that we had extra time built into the schedule. Which, who knows? He's probably on the call and shaking his fist at me right now. But I think it was worth it. I still can't believe you did that, though. That's just bananas to me.
Well, the whole point of printing is that you enjoy it, right? I mean, I have a motorized platen. I stand there and I print. You used to do thousands and thousands of CD covers back in the day, where you'd spend the entire day, kick it out 5,000 or something, and come back and do it the next day. So this is really not that big of a deal. It was, if anything, it was a little retro, old school for me.
You treadled, right, Jen?
What's that, my dear?
You used the treadle?
Yes. No, not for this one. I need a little speed for this. I mean, and it's 2 up, so it doesn't get much easier. And I made a plate of the original artwork just to protect the integrity of the type, because that's a little too much for the type to withstand and be useful again for me in the future. So, I mean, it honestly couldn't be any easier.
How many was the final run you did, Jen?
It was about 17,000 of each color. Yeah, and there were 2.
It's just crazy.
Matt, what were the quantities overall? A couple people were asking, I saw.
I think
Don't tell Jen. They only got
Jen Farrell is my hero. End of
yeah,
story.
she just really threw down the gauntlet for all of you.
I know, right?
She's print goals for all of us.
Yeah.
It was final quantities. I don't know because we always end up with overs. But it was over 40,000, well over 40,000. So, it's a hefty chunk of paper for each printer to run through, or for Jason to do 5 people's. Ben is on here too, right? Ben, what was your process for printing this and proofing it and stuff?
I wanted to use my own type. I wanted to use wood type, and so yeah, I didn't really have a good idea, so I was just looking for type and putting stuff on there, and like that ampersand that I used is like my favorite ampersand, and when I put it on the back cover, it fit so perfectly. I was like, I gotta use that somehow, and so yeah, just thinking about how people would use these books, or people doodle and sketch stuff and take notes and make plans and dreams, but don't really actually do anything with them. So I was like trying to think of maybe I'll just be encouraging and like, come on, go for it. Like use this and go for your dreams. And so once I had the idea and seeing that ampersand work, it all kind of went pretty quickly after that. And I just printed them. I made proofs in black to make good scans for Jason. I think for one of them, I don't know. One of mine is a little softer than I think I would like, but I was just going with it. But yeah, so I did a lot of the transparency tests to try to figure out what I wanted it to look like, and then I went back and printed them in black to get some good, sharp things for Jason.
Yeah, it's so good. It really is. Like, I think somewhere in my pile I have these press sheets just to show everybody what what we're working with here. Can't see myself. There we go. So like, this is what was shipped back from everybody, and just seeing these start to come in. I think we got Jen's back first, and then I don't remember the order of the rest of them. Maybe it was from Full Circle next, but watching these things roll in was just incredible, and seeing the work. And then Aaron's on the call too. Aaron, why don't you talk about your cover a little bit, because it's as good looking as anything else here, and they're all beautiful.
Thank you. I had to work a little differently. I like to use handset type, and so I did include ornaments from Moorwood type from my dad. That was really important to me to include those, but I also wanted to include illustrations from printing textbooks, because I, being the, of course, letterpress educator dork that I am, I wanted to include the great illustrations that are part of all of the textbooks. So this was, I really appreciate, this one was special too, because it's one that Paul Aiken lent me. He and I been talking about letterpress education since we met, so it was really important to me to include elements that were things that our community has shared, because that is something that our community so generously does. So that was the concept behind mine. But it was strange for me, because I sometimes do my layouts digitally, but then I always compose on press. Oh yeah, sorry, Brad said I'm blocking his poster, so he wanted me, I'll block Wolski instead. Is that better? And Jen, see, I have a lot of people up, and Jessica and Stephanie. I have all my friends around me in my Zoom room. So yeah, so it was really fun. So I did proofed off some type in my shop, and then I composed most of my design digitally. And it was great to get to work with Ksenia, because I just appreciate her so much. She has such an incredible attention to detail. And again, she was just sending me, actually, I really didn't need to see a proof because I knew it'd be perfect, but she did send me a picture on her phone, and it was just really exciting to see it all come to life from afar. So it was really funny to realize that I do have a CMP, but I didn't have time. I had to prep for the semester, so I couldn't print mine either. So it was great to be able to have such an amazing partner.
Hey, can I hijack this chat for a second, since Aaron brought up educators?
Absolutely.
And Paul Aiken's not doing great. If you know him and you love him like I do, reach out to me after this. and I'll get you his home address if you want to send him a card, because he's not going to the museum anytime soon. I might be, to take care of some stuff. But please let me know and I'll get you his home address, because I think he'd like cards. Email, he's not checking email, so it's not a good way to go. But if you value what he's contributed to the community, then by all means, reach out to me and I'll connect you that way. That's all.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite little field trips that I took as a student, was to Platen Press. Just seeing that beautiful mess that Paul has was really incredible. And going back to this project, being able to work with educators and job printers and, people like Brad, who are sometimes using wood type and sometimes just making it work on their own with laser cut stuff or whatever. And, Ben, who I would say is maybe more of a hobby printer, although I don't want to put you in a box, Ben. Just, knowing that he has a day job and he prints and that's his passion, and getting to work with people across the board like that, and the history that, Jessica has and Judith Berliner has, and getting to chat has been a real privilege for me. It's been really, really incredible. And I hope you would all go watch the film that we made, because it's really just 12 minutes of wonderful. And maybe the best distillation of how this project made everybody at Field Notes feel.
Yeah, I cried.
Matt was talking about when we started getting the final, when people would finish their prints and we'd get a couple copies of them, in FedEx or whatever before we got the shipments, so we get to see them in the office. And every time, like, it came in, I think, sometimes a few at a time, but usually one at a time. But over the course of maybe like a week, we got them all in, and it was like, oh, this is the best one. And then the next one would come, oh no, this is the best one. And all along I sort of had it in my head, well, we got 9 people. One of these is going to be a little bit of a dud and one's going to be great. And they weren't, like, all of them.
They're not.
Right. I couldn't even start to say which is my favorite or anything like that. They're just all so personal and so right on. And I'm just so excited that everyone nailed it.
Yeah, they really are all phenomenal.
It was like watching a home movie. We love everybody in the film, and we love you guys at Field Notes. It was just like, oh yeah, there's more of the family. It was very sweet.
Yeah, who knows? In 2 to 5 years, we might do another edition and really try to just bury ourselves with the amount of work that we put into it.
Yeah, once we forget how complicated this was, we'll probably think we should do that again.
Mm-hmm.
The film was supposed to be, we were talking about doing even a feature or a much longer film, and Steve and I were making plans to fly out and visit everyone and film and interview everyone in person, and of course then that totally fell through. But I think the film, for considering everyone was gracious enough to shoot and send us really good, like, quantity and quality of footage, we were able to put together a really amazing film with what we were able to get.
Yeah, it was amazing. So we've come up to our hour. I know I could talk to you guys forever, and having all the printers that participated in the PAX is exciting on the call, and all of the printers who join us every week for the ham hang. So I want to say thank you all for coming for this week. Brian and Matthew, I'm sorry we will not see you at Berserkers or at Rudy's at Ways Boost this year.
Maybe next year.
Yes, but hopefully we'll see you on the Zoom calls.